So, one of the ways that I like to engage young people to want to learn to read and want to learn their sounds is through this exercise. And this lesson is not going to be where you're actually teaching the sounds. This is going to be a tool that piques curiosity, that makes children feel better about what they know. It makes this process feel more approachable. You're going to make the connection between sounds and letter sounds and being able to read and write. So it's all going to come together in this lesson. But again, this is a tool where we're not really teaching. We are keeping the momentum and the flow because we just want to show them how much they already know, how doable this is, um, and how fun and relational this could all be. So let's get into it. So you would say that you know that if you listen closely and you know the letter names, most of the letter names are going to tell us at least one of its sounds because some letters make more than one sound. So if they make than one sound, the letter name will tell us at least one. And if they only make one sound, for the most part, if you know the name, you already know the sound. So let me show you how that works. Starting with the letter A makes the sound A. Like, can you give me a fork? So that is a word, it is a sound, and the A makes it. If you know the name, you already know it. A is also in words like acorn. So you also know that sound. You know that sound. You know that letter name. You know it. So the A, it's already making a sound that you could already read and write. Then the more common sound that we're going to learn with the A is the ah. And we hear that in ah. We hear that in at. We hear it inside of other words like at, cat, at, mat. So we hear that ah all the time. That's the short sound. Then it also says aw, like ball, always, mall. So if you look at the word ball, it's not b owl. So it's not that ah sound, it's that aw sound, and we'll learn it third. So the first one we already know, we're gonna work on ah, and then the third sound that we're gonna learn with the A is gonna be the ah. But you see, we totally can do this. Then B, if you think about the word baby and beans and bubbles and buzz and bin, like all of those words where we hear the b sound, well, the letter B is already telling us her name and her sound because B, you hear it in the name. So you already know that one. C makes three sounds. The first one that we usually learn is usually k. But that's also because we don't have to learn the name that is in its name because C makes the sound and it's in its name, C. So we're going to focus on learning the k sound, and we hear that in cat. And the third sound, which we'll learn probably last in the C, whenever we're working on C sounds, and that is ocean. So ocean or magician. So the C also can make the sh sound next to an I, next to an E, and with a little ending. But we'll do that one last. The ones that we want to focus on is k because we can do cat and cut and car, right? So a lot of fun words. And then the other ones, it's already in its name. It's going to be so easy. Then the next one, whenever we hear the word diamond and dog and donkey and dad, whenever we hear that d sound, is the D. And we already know the sound because we know the name and it's already in there. So say D. D. Do you hear how it just says his name? That's this. And then E makes two sounds, but one of them, again, is already, you already know it. It's in its name, like me we, she, it's already there. And two E's just says E. So be free, like all of those is this, just the E. You already know that one, really easy. And then it also makes the eh sound. And we hear that usually like in, if we want to write bed, b, eh, d. You hear that eh, that's the E. So we're going to work on remembering the eh. Or hen, eh, n, hen. So we're going to work on remembering that sound because the E you already know because you know the name. Fan. When you hear the sound fan, or when you hear the sound f in fan, and in fun, and in funny, and in farm, that f sound, the F makes it, and you hear the f in F. So the name is already telling you the sound. That's going to be cool to remember. And then Jim, or J, the sound J. One of the letters that makes that sound, it's in his name. J. Jim. So the G makes the J sound. And she makes it in a couple of different ways. So we'll learn that. But it's like it's already in its name. So you'll be able to know that the J makes the J sound. The G makes the J sound. And then the one that we're going to focus on remembering is the G, which it makes like in the word gummy and gum, that's that G. Now, the H is funny because she doesn't tell us her name, but she does have a connection to another sound, and I'm going to show it to you. But it's kind of easy to remember the H as well because the word, she makes the h sound, and it's like hot breath, right? So if you go with your hand, that's that hot breath, and you hear the sound, and that's the H. And you also hear it in words like hot, hat, happy. So we do hear it, and that's that H. And then I is my girl because she makes four sounds. She does not play. She does a lot of things. You're not going to box her in. So I love I, and I has a fraternal twin, which is really cool. You know how sometimes twins, you can have two people that are twins but don't look exactly the same. They're fraternal twins. I has a fraternal twin, so that's cool, and we'll talk about her later. So they're twinsies. And I is a word all by herself. So she's a sound and she's a word. And you already know that one, like I am. This is the I. And then the sound that we're going to work on is I, and it's inside of the word fin, like f, I, n, and pin, p, I, n. And also it's at the beginning of the word insect and at the beginning of the word in. So I, n, that's I. And then remember how I told you you can't box her in? She's also in radio because she also makes the E sound, and she even makes the Y sound in onion. So with I is like you have to get to know her. But she is going to tell you her one sound in her name. And then J makes the ch sound. And remember, G also makes that sound. They both say it in their name. So you know that both of them say that sound because it's both in their name. That's how you remember. So you have j making, you have the j sound made by the j a. So you remember about that both the j e and the j a make the j sound. So that's how I remember that. And then jam, I love this word because it can mean like a fruit preserve that you put on your bread, like jam, like strawberry jam. But also jam can be like, that's my jam, that's my song. And also jam can be if something, you can get something stuck, and that's like the printer is jammed. And also it could be like people playing a music, they get to jam. And so jam is a fun word to remember that you write it with a J, and the sound is J. And then the K, if you hear it, if you make it slowly, K makes the K sound in its name, and that's the name that it's making. And you can hear it, you can see it there in K, ick. So the name tells us the sound. And the L makes the sound, so it's also in its name. So if you hear lips and love and lovely and long, whenever you hear that sound, it's being made by the L, but the L is already telling us the sound, so you already know that. And then the M is also going to tell you the sound that she makes, mom and map, and it's at the end of jam, and mushroom. So all those words and words where you can hear the in it is the M, and the M is already telling you her sound. So M, So that one's easy for you to know. Then you have the N. The letter N is also telling you her sound. That's N, the letter N. And then you hear a no, which leads us to our next sound, O. And the O, one of its sounds is the O. So N, O, no. So if you know the two letter names, you can already read that word. No, N, O. So O, it's also in words like open. And so we're going to work on that. And then the one sound that we are going to work on is the ah, the short sound. And you hear that in like ostrich, you hear in ah. And so you already heard the and m, and then the ah in that o, and then boom, mop. So what I love about that is if you know these three letters, M, O, and P, you already can read mop. Mop. It's right there. And so, yeah, and the P makes that P sound, and it's already in its name. So you already know it. And you hear it in pet, you hear it in pat, you hear it in pen, you hear it in pencil, you hear it in mop, you hear it in top and tip. So you hear it all the time. And then the Q is really cute because the Q needs a security blanket. She does not like going anywhere without her bestie, the U. Whenever you see the Q, you're going to see the U. Like literally always. Her name, her sound is K, which you hear in Q, so you do hear it. But then the name already tells you that she has the U next to her. Look, K, U, Q. So you know that it's the Q and the U. They go together. So when you see it, it's that K sound, and then you know that it has the U. And she tells you right in her name. And you hear it in quit, and you hear it in quick. So super cool, right? And then the R is a little bit challenging. So the R, you almost have to say it for a long time. You have to go like R, R, and then that's going to help you come up with the sound of R, which is the sound that it makes, like in rat and brat and ring. So you hear it towards the end of that sound. And then the S makes the sound. It's already in its name in a word like sun. So you hear in snake, in symbol, in sand. So that's that S sound, and it's in its name, S. So there's two sounds that make that there's two letters rather that make the S like sound, and they're both in their name, C and S. So we get to learn which one makes what sound, and that's like a fun little lesson. But the S also makes two other sounds, and I think it's kind of cool. So you see how in the word passion, you see this is the word, this is the fruit, passion fruit, and it's delicious. And this is how you write it. And you see how it has the S's. So we don't say passion, we say passion. So the S and the I are making the sh sound together, and that's cool. And then is, because we don't say is and his and has, those little words make the Z sound, and we're going to learn them as a group. Has, is, his. And then the letter T makes the T sound. That's the most common, and you already know it because you hear it in the name. T is making the T sound. So whenever we hear words like tip and top and tell and tank, whenever we hear T, we already know it's with a T because the T tells us a sound. T. And then it also makes the sh sound, like in lotion when we see it, the same as that C in ocean, the same as that um, S, making that sh sound. And so with certain patterns, with certain other letters and other like little families, you know how sometimes when we're with some friends, we sound a little bit different or we act a little bit different with some friends that we do with our families, than we do with our cousins. And so sometimes when letters get together with different friends and different scenarios that can say a different sound, it's just like that. So T can say Sean next to an I, and then the C and then the S, they can all say sh. Um, but we get to learn that, and then we get to learn when to use it later. And then the U makes three sounds. One of the sounds is you. So again, she's telling us her name in like music. And then the one that we usually learn at the beginning is the which is like an up and up and n. So we learned that first. The U, we already know it, like music. So you don't have to really learn that one. You already know it. And then the other one that we do learn is that ooh. But you. So it says it in its name. So it can make the U sound, but it also tells us that sound in its name. Yeah, ooh. So it makes the ooh sound as well. So in its name, it's telling you two sounds. And so then we just have to learn one. You literally know these sounds already. It's so cool. So V, it's fun because it makes the V sound, and it's also in his name. And we hear that in violet and violin and five and love, right? We hear it and it makes our lips tickle a little bit, and it's in his name, so we can't forget it. And also, a little tad bit is that V is shy and she doesn't like to go at the end. And so we always put a silent E at the end whenever it's in a word. So love and Eve and leave and live. Whenever we hear her at the end of words, we'll put a silent E because the E will just like support it, because the E is like such a cool friend. So we already know that sound. The W, I don't know why. The W refuses to say her name. But we remember that the word Y starts with a W because we're confused too. She's confused. Y is confused as to why the W won't say her name. And so, but Y says the W sound, and she does not say her sound in her name. We don't know why. We do hear that W sound in wind and in water and in wind and in when and in why. We do hear the sound. And then X does say her sound in her name in the word, like in the word fox. And she also says another sound Z in like xylophone. And so the S can make the Z sound and the X can make the Z sound. And then we have the Y. And the Y, remember how I told you that that the I had a fraternal twinsy? Is Y. Is Y. I and Y make all of the same sounds. They are fraternal twins. Literally. They're twins. They just don't look identical. And we love that. So Y makes all of the I sounds. I makes all of the Y sounds. Y makes the Y sound like in yak and yucky. Yeah. And then it also makes the I sound like in fly. And it also makes the E sound like in baby. But if you think about it, the Y also tells you both of her sounds. Because look, Y, I, I, E, I, E. So she does make the I and she makes the E sound. So two of her sounds are in her name. And then we just have to remember that Y sound and the I sound, which the I also makes. So we'll learn that as a little group. But two of the sounds, she already tells you her name. And then the Z sound like zoo and zap are made by the Z and Z. So she makes her own name. Zebra, that goes at the beginning of words usually. And then you also have it at word like fizz, but like it's mostly at the beginning. Buzz, that's at the end. Mostly at the beginning. But the S can also make the Z at some of the words and the X. So we'll learn those as a little group. And it's cool. And a few other cool sounds is ch. So remember how I told you that the H does connect to one sound? It's this one because the H does not make her own sound like breath, but she does make this ch sound in H. So she does connect to a sound. And the CH together make that ch sound like chocolate and chip and champ and chair. But they also make two other sounds because that's just how we are, right? Sometimes we act a little different and around other things and other people. And so in the word like school, it makes k sound. And in a word like chef or chandelier, it's going to make the sh sound. And then the OG sh sound is going to be this one. It's going to be, where is the OG? Here she is, the SH. She's the OG. She's going to make the sh sound. And you can hear it at the beginning, ship, and you could hear it at the end, dish. When you hear in the middle, it's usually going to be the CI, TI, SI, but or CE, right? When you hear sh in the middle, it's going to be one of those, and you hear it at the beginning or at the end, it's going to be the SH. So let me go and show you this one. The E, two E's just make E, like bee and tree and free. So that's like cool. And then the double O, um, it's gonna say ooh, like tool and cool. Um, that ooh sound is with the double O, so that's cool. But it also can say ooh, like foot and book. And we get to learn that. And when we learn it, we'll get to like put, okay, which one says ooh and which one says oh. And so that's gonna be cool. The OG. And so there's 75 sounds, but guess what? We already went through 51. We already went through 51 sounds just today. And that means that out of the 75 sounds in English, we're like, if we look at our chart, we're almost on the other side of that. And some sounds are tricky, yes, but we can break those down and go through them together. For example, you know how the E says two sounds, E and eh? Remember how we went through that? And one of them is just a name, and the other one we kind of remember it as the eh. When the E and the A get together, they're total besties. And the A just kind of is just there for moral support. She's not in the mix. She's not talking. She's just supporting the E. The E is going to make two sounds, just like it did here. The E A is going to say E, like eat, and it's going to say eh, like in head. So the A is just a supportive queen because she's just a bestie. And the E is going to say E as in eat and eh in a word head. But then sometimes the E is also going to be a bestie and it's going to like let the A say her name. And we hear that just in 3 words for the most part: great, break, and steak. And I like to say, I made a great steak during the break. Great steak break. So that's when the E is being a supportive queen and the A gets to say her name. So we like to learn a few sounds and a few rules at a time, and then we're going to use that to build words, and then we're going to read them, and then we're going to learn their spelling if we need to correct something. Because remember how I told you like different words make the sh sound, or different words make the I sound. And so we'll write them how we hear them based on the sounds that we know. But if we need to correct the spelling, we'll do that too. And if we do a few of them at a time, we won't be overwhelmed. And this is really important and is really cool because once you know the sounds and you know the rules, you literally can think of any word. Like if I think of the word cat and I say it, cat, the C, then is that A, and then it's t, t. So CAT. So I can think about anything that I want and I can sound it out and attach a letter to the sound. And now I'm writing. And I can do it again with literally any word. Mango. Ang. Oh. Ang. Oh, I just wrote mango. Right? So learning those symbols and those sounds is clutch and it's always going to be helpful. And it's okay if what we write turns out to be a sound that a letter that makes a different sound in that particular word, and then we just correct it because we know all of the sounds in their letters. So we can say, oh, it wasn't this one, it's this other one, and then we just correct the spelling. So knowing how to read and find out things on our own is a power that no one can ever take away from us. Forever and a day, you're going to take this sound knowledge and you're going to take your spelling knowledge and you're going to be able to look up and think and read anything that you want and that you need. And you have your own agency. You don't have to wait for anybody to read something to you. So long as you have thoughts and you have your letter sound knowledge and you know what you're doing and you've worked on it, this is yours. and the things we write. If you think about all the people who wrote things hundreds of years ago and we're still reading their words. So the things that we write can outlive us. So this is a power that outlives us, and it's a power that no one gets to take from us once we learn to do it. So our future selves are always going to be excited because of the work that we did now. And for some people, learning to read and write and spell is easy, and for others, it is more challenging. It does take practice, but I'm here to support you through it. We're going to do it together. And once we have these skills, we have them forever. And so we get to experience ease in writing and in reading, and we get to be encouraged because we get to do it forever and ever. So that is how I teach. That is how I teach young people to read, to stay motivated, to plug in, to know what they already know. And if you know the alphabet, you can take your children, if your children can know the alphabet, you can take them almost through 51 sounds very quickly. And as you're taking them through sounds, you're always building words. You're taking them through sounds and building words, taking them through sounds and building words. So they always can feel empowered every time they learn a new word, every time they learn a new sound, rather, you connect it to being able to write more and more words. So long as you're doing that, they're always feeling like there's progress. They're always feeling like they're empowered. So long as we do that, we can really move them to a place where they feel empowered and they feel like their capacity is getting them somewhere. Then we can keep the momentum going. And so that's how we teach it. And I hope that this lesson is helpful. Make sure you're tracking your sounds. Make sure that you're always building words and using those words to build sentences so that children feel the true utility of this print. And happy writing, happy reading.